salutations, my friend. Welcome. Did I say my friend? Hopefully it's more than one of you out there. Greetings and salutation, my scientific friends, and welcome to Science News, where I'm trying to keep you up to date on all the news in science that's breaking, courtesy of Science Daily. So are you ready to hear what's going on in the world of science these days? I think I am. Let's do this. All right. So, first story we're going to talk about. New AI predicts inner workings of cells. And this was from Columbia University Irving Medical Center. In the same way that ChatGPT understands human language, a new AI model developed by computational biologists captures the language of cells to accurately predict their activities. I did not accurately say that word. That's very exciting. Is it also a little bit terrifying? I am not sure what happens when the cells start to hallucinate, as do AI. Well, I guess they'll improve the technology over time, but it is actually very exciting because a lot more research can get to be done a lot more quickly. So we hear a lot of scary things about AI. This, to me, overall, a good news story. And speaking of good news stories, I don't know why I think this is a good news story, but ants can hold a grudge. And this is from the University of Freiburg. And evolutionary biologists are investigating the extent to which ants learn from past experiences. After being attacked by ants from a particular nest, ants behave more aggressively towards others from that same nest. And if you didn't know ants could bear a grudge, well, you're not in my family. Haha, little family humor. Uncles can carry a grudge as well. But I just think this is fascinating, and I think very often we don't necessarily look into the animal world and realize how much is going on in there on an emotional level, I guess you could call it. I mean, what else do you call it when one ant doesn't like another ant or bears a grudge? They have feelings. And let's move on to our next story, because I have feelings about this one. Pluto-Charon formation scenario mimics Earth-Moon system. New findings could support Pluto's geologic activity and potential subsurface ocean. This is from the Southwest Research Institute. A researcher has used advanced models that indicate that the formation of Pluto and Charon may parallel that of the Earth-Moon system. Both systems include a moon that is a large fraction of the size of the main body, unlike the other moons in the solar system. The scenario could also support Pluto's active geology and possible subsurface ocean, despite its location at the frozen edge of the solar system. And I just think that's such a cool thing to think about. Pluto, which very recently wasn't a planet and then has become a planet again, and this is all just due to details about its size and its location in orbit, and there is actually a very good argument to say that it's not a planet, but there's also a very good argument to say that planets are just a concept that we have made up ourselves, and if you were to ask any planet if it was a planet, it wouldn't say anything because planets can't speak. But let's get back to Pluto and its potential water ocean. So we know water equals life. And if Pluto had in its core an ocean with liquid, and how would it have an ocean with liquid? Well, remember, it's got a big moon like our moon, and that's pulling on the center of Pluto, and that's causing all the ice in the middle to kind of get broken up, and the friction will heat it up. And so even though it's freezing cold there, you could have a water under the surface. That to me is an exciting thought. So Pluto could have life. Now, will Pluto learn to speak? This is a Disney joke. Speaking of jokes, I mean, this isn't so much a joke as just an observation. Ketamine use on the rise in U.S. adults. New trends emerge. This is from the University of California, San Diego. Insert, oh, those Californians are so hedonistic. But apparently this is a worldwide thing. So University of California, San Diego. According to a new study, ketamine use has risen significantly since 2015. The results highlight the need for closer monitoring of recreational ketamine use. And why do we need closer monitoring? Well, there's two things that we need to also monitoring. That's a hard word to say well. Monitoring. We need it for two reasons. Well, first of all, what's it doing to everyone? But second of all, ketamine actually has potentially a lot of good medical applications in mental health. And people are worried that if it just gets out into the world and keeps causing people to overdose, as does happen, that it will get regulated out of use. And the exact same thing happened with psychedelics in the 60s, which had a ton of promise for treating depression and alcoholism and other things. But when the hippies got their hands on it, well, it was all over for that. So we'll see what happens with ketamine use. And it's interesting to note that you're 2 times more likely to use ketamine if you have a post-secondary degree. And you're 1,000 times more likely to use it if you're the richest person in the world. Bam! Okay, what's our next story? Speaking of high IQs, let's talk about low IQs. Lead pollution likely caused widespread IQ declines in ancient Rome, new study finds. Scientists used Arctic ice core records to reconstruct historic atmospheric lead pollution in ancient Rome and link exposure to cognitive declines. This is from the Desert Research Institute. I wonder if they're related to the Southwest Research Institute. Lead exposure is responsible for a range of human health impacts, with even relatively low levels impacting the cognitive development of children. Scientists have previously used atmospheric pollution records preserved in Arctic ice cores to identify periods of lead pollution throughout the Roman Empire. And now new research expands on this finding to identify how this pollution may have affected the European population. And how did it affect the European population? It would appear poorly. It impacted their IQ level. And you can sort of see a decline in that over roughly 200 years, a period known as the Pax Romana. And in that period of time, people's IQs were falling. There was a big plague and a bunch of people died. Now, what was the source of all this lead? Oh, sorry, my bad. There was a big plague, a bunch of people died, and then there was a lot less lead in the atmosphere after that. And where was all this lead coming from? It appears it was all coming from silver mining. And silver mining also has a really negative environmental impact in the New World. And in fact, the word Argentina comes from the word silver. And the silver mines that the Spanish started used mercury to remove silver, which was super, super toxic, poisonous. So it's interesting how our quest for silver, our quest for money, has actually polluted the world. As a little side note, the lead levels in ancient Rome, due to industrial production, were as high as they ever were until the early 20th century, when we caught up with our polluting smokestacks. And by the 1970s, lead in the air was 40 times higher than it was in ancient Rome, which is why all us Gen Xers are messed, but not too unhappy about it. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed New Science News for this week. Tune in next week where something's going to happen, and I'm going to tell you about it. Peace!